Behind the sandstone hills of southern Spain, in a region rarely visited by tourists, stood an ancient monastery called Santa Reina del Silencio. Surrounded by orange groves and dry winds, this solitary structure had withstood centuries of change. Its faded brick walls whispered forgotten prayers, and the bells of its tower rang out in the empty landscape, heard only by the birds. In this monastery lived Sister Evelina. At 35, Evelina, with sharp green eyes and an imposing silence, was an enigmatic woman. She had taken her vows at 20, but unlike the other nuns, she never smiled during hymns, never cried during sermons, and never spoke of divine love. Her faith was not gentle, it was precise, harsh, almost militaristic. Deep within her soul, beneath layers of rituals and rosaries, burned a fierce hatred for one religion, Islam. To the outside world, her aversion seemed like a theological disagreement, but for Evelina, it was personal. Her older brother, a soldier, had died in a conflict abroad. The news blamed extremists, but Evelina blamed the entire religion. Over the years, her prejudice grew, fueled by carefully selected books, forums that confirmed her anger, and the quiet echo of the monastery's library. She considered Islam oppressive, backward, and dangerous. One rainy day, a letter arrived at the monastery with an unfamiliar seal. Inside was an invitation from a cultural exchange group linked to a mysterious European foundation. They offered her a unique opportunity to document her thoughts on Islam by traveling to Mecca as a supposed convert. Everything was arranged. Her new name would be Amira Lopez, a Spaniard who had embraced Islam 6 months ago. Evelina was intrigued, even excited. This was not just research. It was her chance to prove the emptiness of that faith from within. She agreed without hesitation. Over the next few weeks, she learned the rituals, Arabic phrases, and basic tenets of Islam. She memorized prayers, learned to wear a hijab, and received instructions on blending in. But her heart remained cold. When she arrived in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, the first thing that struck her was the air, thick, dry, and filled with something she couldn't describe. At the airport, she joined a group of genuine converts from various countries. Some wept, others smiled, all brimming with emotion. Evelina, now Amira, stayed silent, watching, waiting. They traveled by bus to Mecca. On the way, verses from the Quran played softly through the speakers. She ignored them, her gaze fixed on the distant hills and minarets rising above the city. That evening, they reached the great mosque. The Kaaba stood before her, draped in black and gold, surrounded by tens of thousands of pilgrims. This place should have impressed her, but it didn't. She saw only a stone cube revered by millions. It quietly outraged her. The next few days passed in a haze of rituals. She mimicked the ritual washing, joined the prayers, and walked the sacred circles around the Kaaba. Her heart remained indifferent, but her mind recorded every detail for her final report. In her bag, she carried a small capsule of ink, invisible until activated by heat, with which she planned to discreetly mark the stone. A symbolic gesture no one would notice, but one she believed would fulfill her mission. A desecration disguised as devotion. But something began to change. On the 4th night, she met Noor, an African Muslim woman who had come alone, having saved for 10 years. Noor had lost her family in a fire and found solace in Islam during her grief. Her stories were full of pain, but her eyes radiated peace. That night, they sat under the stars, sharing dates and water. Noor spoke of the Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, not with fanaticism, but with warmth, as if describing a cherished teacher. Evelina listened, outwardly unmoved, but inwardly deeply shaken. Noor didn't question or judge. She only shared. On the 7th day, she approached the Kaaba again, this time alone. The crowd parted slowly. Her heart raced. The ink capsule was hidden in her sleeve. She drew closer. The black stone gleamed under the lantern light. People before her kissed it, whispered to it, wept before it. Her turn came. She reached out but stopped. Something within her trembled, not from nerves, but from her soul. She looked at the stone, truly looked, and saw not just a reflection, but memories. Her brother laughing in childhood, her mother praying in silence, Noor smiling under her scarf. In that moment, all her anger felt childish. All her certainty crumbled. She stepped back. Tears streamed down her face before she understood why. She dropped the capsule to the ground and crushed it with her sandal. A guard glanced her way but said nothing. Her hands rose in a gesture she had only mimicked before, now trembling with sincerity. "Ya Allah," she whispered. "I don't know you, but you know me. If there is light in this place, let it find me." She fell into sujud, the prostration she had once practiced as a choreographed dance. This time, her forehead touched the marble with sincerity. She stayed there for several minutes, sobbing quietly, as the crowd continued their sacred circles. She didn't return to Spain immediately. Instead, she stayed in Mecca for weeks, learning, listening, praying. Noor remained by her side. The foundation that sent her never received her report. She vanished from their network. To them, she had failed. To herself, she had found something worth keeping. Months later, in a quiet corner of Granada, a woman sat in a modest Islamic center, translating Quranic verses into Spanish. Her hijab was a soft gray, her face serene. In the courtyard, children laughed. The woman smiled. Her name was now Amina, and she no longer felt hatred, only light. Years passed. Amina became a teacher for new converts in Andalusia. Her classes were always full. She never preached from a place of superiority, but spoke from the heart. She shared stories of confusion, resistance, and the search for peace. Her past was never a secret. In fact, it gave her words more weight. One evening, after a class, a young woman approached her, trembling, eyes wide, clutching a Bible. "Sister Amina," she whispered, "I was raised to fear your faith, but something brought me here. I don't understand why." Amina gently took her hand and said, "You don't need to understand everything today. Sometimes Allah plants a seed in the darkness. One day it blooms in the light." That evening, as Amina walked home through the narrow streets of old Granada, she passed the silent silhouette of a church, like the one she once called home. She paused for a moment, not with bitterness, but with gratitude. Her path had not been easy. It began with deceit, anger, and pride. But each step led her toward peace. She looked up at the sky, where stars twinkled above the ancient towers of the Alhambra, and whispered a prayer. "Ya Allah, thank you for not judging me for who I was, but guiding me to who I could become." With those words, she walked on. No longer a stranger, but a seeker turned believer. Her journey found its true end, not just Mecca, but submission, sincerity, and peace. Amina's story reminds us that faith is not inherited or imposed by circumstances. Sometimes, it is revealed in the most unexpected places, through conflict, doubt, and even deceit. What began as a mission of defiance ended in surrender to the truth. In the sacred silence of sujud, she found answers no book could provide. Her transformation was not sudden but sincere. And in every person she now guides, every verse she translates, and every prayer she utters, lives proof that guidance is not for the deserving, but for the willing. O Allah, Lord of the heavens and the earth, sovereign of all that exists, giver of visible and invisible blessings, I ask you, with a heart full of hope and hands raised in supplication, grant me lawful success in all I strive to achieve. Fill me with contentment, but open for me the doors of abundance from sources I could never imagine. O Allah, bless my efforts and make them fruitful. Let each step bring me closer to what pleases you. Protect me from laziness, despair, wastefulness, and illicit gains. O protector of risk, enrich my heart with gratitude, my home with halal wealth, and my future with barakah. Make me one of those who give, not those who ask. Place in my hands the means to benefit others and guide me to spend in your cause without pride.